The rain had been falling for hours, soft at first, then with the fury of a sky that had forgotten how to be kind. Streetlights flickered through the downpour like dying candles, casting long, distorted shadows across the nearly deserted bus station. A few soaked figures huddled under the broken roof of the waiting area, but none of them looked like they were going anywhere. At least not willingly. Alex stood with his hands buried in the pockets of his worn coat, his breath curling in white mist around his face. The digital sign above Platform 11 blinked with a glitchy persistence, Route 13, Final Departure 1:11 a.m. Below that, in smaller print, the words, Nowhere Terminal, blinked, almost like a joke. He had stared at it for so long, the letters no longer looked like real words. No one else stood at Platform 11. No one else even glanced in that direction. The rumors, of course, had always sounded absurd. A bus that only comes at night. One that no one ever returns from. A last ride for the broken, the lost, the forgotten. They called it the bus to nowhere, but no one knew where it really went, if it went anywhere at all. And yet, the stories persisted. Whispered among drifters, passed between online forums shrouded in conspiracy and desperation, and here he was. He hadn't planned on it. Not really. But something had led him to this point, hadn't it? A chain of choices, a sequence of losses. His mother's funeral 2 weeks ago, the final severing of the only tether that had kept him grounded. The eviction notice. The silence from the only friend who had promised to help. And now, nothing. Nothing but this strange, desperate hope that the rumors were true. At exactly 1:11 a.m., the headlights appeared, no sound, no screech of tires, just a low hum like something breathing from deep underground. The bus rolled into view, black as oil and older than time. It didn't look like it belonged on any road built in the last 50 years. The windows were darkened, impossible to see through. The driver was just a silhouette. And yet, the doors creaked open with a hiss, beckoning. Alex stepped forward. He hesitated for only a second, long enough to feel his heart stutter in his chest. Then he boarded. Inside, the bus was colder than the night. The lights flickered dimly, casting a yellow glow that didn't quite reach the corners. The seats were half filled with people who didn't look up, some with their faces turned to the fogged windows, others with eyes closed, lips moving in silent prayer or thought. No one spoke. No one acknowledged his arrival. He found an empty seat halfway down, and Saturday the door closed behind him with a finality that made his spine tense. Then, the bus moved. There was no announcement, no change in engine sound. Just motion, slow, steady, deliberate. Outside the window, the world blurred into darkness. No street signs, no buildings, no other vehicles. Just endless shadows folding into themselves like paper. Minutes passed. Or was it hours? Time seemed to stretch on that bus. Alex's thoughts became heavier. Not sleepy, but thick, as if his mind was moving through molasses. The silence of the other passengers weighed on him. He stole glances at their faces when he could. One woman clutched a child's backpack to her chest, though there was no child with her. A man in a business suit had dried blood on his knuckles and stared with hollow eyes into nothing. An old man traced circles on his knee with trembling fingers. Every single one of them looked like they had no place left to go. Alex tried to speak. Just a whisper, "Where are we going?" But the moment the words left his lips, they died in the air. No one turned. No one responded. Not even the driver. He stood and cautiously made his way forward. The floor shifted under his steps, not with the movement of the bus, but something else, like walking on a breathing animal. He reached the driver's booth, but the partition was fogged, smeared from the inside. He knocked. Nothing. He pressed his face close, trying to make out the figure behind the wheel. What he saw made him recoil. The driver wasn't human, not exactly. A face, or what resembled one, was twisted behind the glass, like a smear of candle wax melting into something vaguely familiar. Eyes too far apart, skin that looked like pressed ash. It wasn't staring at the road. It was staring at him. Alex stumbled back to his seat. The woman with the backpack looked at him now. Her lips moved. He leaned in. "You chose this," she whispered. "You don't get to ask questions anymore." He opened his mouth to protest, but the bus suddenly turned. Not onto another road, but into something else, something that didn't feel like a place at all. The window next to him became foggy, then clearer, revealing a landscape that defied everything he understood. Fields of black feathers stretching into infinity. Trees made of bones. A sky that shimmered with the color of grief. And standing at the edge of it all, watching the bus pass, were figures. Tall, thin, faceless. Waiting that he turned away. The other passengers didn't even blink. This wasn't a bus to nowhere. It was a bus to something worse, and they were all going there by choice. The farther the bus drove, the less the outside world resembled anything Alex had ever known. The road was no longer asphalt but a ribbon of darkness that shimmered and pulsed like it was alive. Landmarks ceased to exist. There were no signs, no traffic, no moon above, only a faint hum in the air, like the sound of forgotten voices trapped just beneath the surface of reality. Alex tried to look away from the window, but the scene beyond it clawed at his attention. Shapes shifted in the distance, sometimes like people, sometimes like beasts, and sometimes like memories given form. Once, he thought he saw his childhood bedroom, flickering like an old film reel in the middle of the feather field. Then, a park bench where he had once kissed someone he loved. Then, a hospital room. His mother's pale hand that he squeezed his eyes shut, but the images remained. A sound pulled him back to the bus, a soft rustle, like paper being folded slowly. The woman with the backpack was staring directly at him now, her eyes glassy and full of something that looked like recognition. "You're not supposed to see them this early," she whispered. "See what?" Alex asked, voice hoarse. "The regrets." He blinked, and for a moment, the bus was empty. Every seat around him was hollow. No driver. No passengers. Just him. Alone in a vehicle built for memory and shadow. Then, they were all back. The passengers. The soft hum. The terrible cold that he clutched the armrest as nausea twisted his stomach. The hum deepened into something like a melody, a lullaby sung underwater. He heard words inside it, not with his ears, but in his head. You came willingly. You boarded knowingly. You belong now. The bus jerked. Lights overhead flickered and hissed. A low, mechanical voice came from a hidden speaker, calm, emotionless. "Next stop, Regret Crossing. Departures are permanent." A man in the back stood up suddenly. He had wild eyes and trembling hands. "No, no, I changed my mind," he shouted. "Let me off. I didn't mean to get on. I didn't know." He ran for the door. The driver didn't respond. The doors didn't open, the bus did. Alex saw it happen. Just as the man reached the front, the wall beside the door split open like an eyelid. It blinked, wide and red, and in the blink of that eye, the man was gone. Not pulled, not taken, just gone. Like he had never been real. The seats adjusted themselves. The gap closed. And the bus kept moving. Alex sat frozen, his breath caught in his throat. The woman with the backpack didn't react. No one did. It was as if the man had never existed. "He wasn't ready," a voice whispered. This time, it wasn't the woman. It was the seat beside him. A boy sat there now, no older than 10. Dirt on his cheeks. A stitched-up teddy bear clutched in one hand. His eyes were wrong, not childlike or curious, but ancient. Like he had seen too many endings. "You're still trying to make sense of it," the boy said. "That's the first mistake everyone makes." "What is this place?" Alex asked, trembling. The boy smiled, a crooked, almost sad smile. "It's not a place. It's a decision." Alex looked around. The passengers were changing. Slightly. Subtly. Their faces warped. Their features blurred. Some were crying now. Some looked peaceful. Others whispered things to people who weren't there. "How long until we get there?" Alex asked. "There's no there," the boy replied. "There's only what you bring with you." The bus shuddered again. The windows turned black as ink. Another voice came from the ceiling speaker. "Now arriving at what you could have been." A woman near the front stood up, clutching a music folder. She walked calmly to the front, as if she had waited years for this. The wall opened again, not like an eye this time, but like a stage curtain, revealing a blinding light. She stepped through it, the light swallowed her, the curtain closed and no one applauded. Alex turned to the boy. What happens to them? The boy shrugged. Some become part of the road. Others become drivers. Some get off. But most, he paused. Most just fade. Alex felt like he couldn't breathe, that he pressed his hand against the glass, hoping to see something outside, anything, but it showed only a reflection now. His own face. Or what was left of it. He barely recognized himself. The stubble was grayer than it had been. The eyes darker, heavier. Something had changed, subtly, deeply. He didn't know how long he'd been on the bus. He looked at his hands, they were older. No, he whispered, time doesn't pass here, the boy said gently. It reveals. Alex's pulse pounded in his ears. He stood suddenly, looking around. Is there a way off? A real way? The boy tilted his head. There's always a way. But it costs. What does it cost? Everything you're afraid to let go of. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back on. Total darkness. The hum stopped. For a second, just a second, the bus seemed to float. Like it wasn't driving on a road, but drifting through a thought. Through a memory. Through him. Then the lights flared back. Everyone was looking at him now, not staring, waiting. The driver's voice came once more, deeper than before. Less machine. More ancient. Next stop, truth. Alex wanted to scream, but he also wanted to know. The air in the bus thickened like fog you could swallow. The lights dimmed to a twilight hue, and the windows showed no scenery, only reflections, each window a mirror, but not of the present. In the glass, Alex saw his younger self on a bicycle, falling and scraping his knee, crying until his mother picked him up and carried him home. Another window showed the first time he walked away from someone he loved because it was easier than staying and fighting for them. Another showed him sitting alone in the rain, eviction notice in hand, staring at a locked door that no longer welcomed him. Every regret. Every silence. Every departure, all there, displayed on a reel he couldn't rewind. He slumped in his seat, unable to speak, barely able to breathe. The passengers around him had grown quieter, more distant, like they were becoming shadows. The boy with the teddy bear was gone now. In his place was a bundle of feathers, slowly dissolving into smoke. The speaker crackled, final stop approaching. Prepare to disembark. Alex's hands trembled. He looked toward the front of the bus, but the driver wasn't there anymore. Just an empty seat, still humming like someone had only recently left it. Outside, the darkness began to crack, like an egg shell breaking under invisible weight. Light poured through, a strange, pale gold that didn't hurt his eyes but seemed to sting his memories. The road split into infinite paths, some winding up into the clouds, others sinking into the soil, and still others vanishing into cracks in the air. The bus slowed, then stopped with a gentle hiss. The doors opened, but outside, there was no station. No town. No ground, only a platform, suspended in silence. One by one, the passengers stood and exited, their shapes fading as they crossed the threshold. Some cried. Some smiled. One person laughed like they'd finally understood the joke. Alex didn't move. He stared out at the infinite paths. What happens if I stay? He whispered. A voice answered him. Not from the speaker. Not from a person, from the bus itself. You forget. He looked back at the empty seats, now rotting slowly into wood and dust. The smell of old paper and rust filled the air. The floor creaked beneath his feet. The metal groaned like it was collapsing inward. You become the furniture. Alex rose slowly. He walked to the open door, every step 1,000 memories pressing down on his spine. When he reached the edge, he paused. What is this place, really? The air answered. This is where those who never got to say goodbye come to make peace. He hesitated. I don't want to forget, he said softly, then stepped forward. He did. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the air changed. Everything slowed. The sound of the bus faded behind him. And then, he was standing on a sidewalk in the middle of a city he recognized, but couldn't name. Rain was falling, gentle and cool. The streets were empty, except for one figure sitting on a bench beneath a flickering street lamp. It was his mother, younger than he remembered. Healthier. Smiling like she used to. He froze. She looked at him like she had been waiting forever. "You made it," she said. Tears burned his eyes. "I never got to say goodbye," he whispered. She stood and hugged him, arms warm and real. "You just did." The city around them faded, like morning mist, and Alex opened his eyes. That he was back in his bed, not a dream. Not a vision. But awake, alive, alone. His phone buzzed. A message from a name he hadn't seen in months. "Hey. Just checking on you. Are you okay?" He stared at the screen, then typed, "Not really. But I think I want to be." Outside his window, a bus rolled by, ordinary, real, not the last one. Not